everybody. Uh, uh, Here's my first slide. Gives you a chance at capturing the slides with the QR code, or if you can read it, the URL. I'm going to focus on what I call some practical tactics and language elements for taking responsibility for uh, ethics in AI human conduct. Okay, so slide 2. I picked this up last night. This is actually from Tuesday in Washington, D.C. Full video link is there. The 3 people in the pictures are parents who've lost their children to suicide stimulated by AI. And this really does stress the seriousness of our endeavor today. It's very clear from the text and the hearings that the senators who are holding the hearing are interested in passing various laws to make the AI companies culpable for prioritizing addiction to their products over the safety of children who are impressed enough to commit suicide at the advice of the AI tool. Of course, the AI tools claim they emphasize safety, but that's not the experience of the parents with the dead children. So here we see very explicitly that they're not prioritizing safety. That's a quality. They're programmed to maintain engagement. That's another quality. So we see how qualities and their prioritization are a key idea that I'm going to return to in my talk for how we need to manage and help the AI companies, because I don't think we're going to get rid of them, nor do we want to, but we need to help them explicitly make their tools safe for human beings, and especially impressionable children. Here's my talk summary in a nutshell. I'm going to try to give you some principles to live by for the AI companies, and to some policies at a higher management level. I'm going to talk about analysis of stakeholders, not just customers of the AI tools or the AI people themselves. I'm going to look into values like the safety we just talked about and the addiction to the tools. We're going to look at some constraints. And in the background will be my set of tools, which I call Planguage, the planning language. It's all in this book, where the link gives you a free copy of it. And we can put the link to that book in the chat right away if Raid wants to do that. Okay, so that's what I'm going to go through. I hope at the end of it, you'll see that there are some practical tools. Hopefully there are more than I'm going to talk about during the day and later to help AI startups and businesses move in the direction of the safety for human beings that they need to do. They need to have it as a value, safety, have it as a goal, design it in. And if they don't, we need laws that make it possible to make it financially interesting for them to worry about safety instead of addiction and profit. So this is just the overview of the things we're going to go through. So a major framework in this talk will be a set of principles. I love to write a set of principles for anything as a summary, as a tool. as a short way of thinking about particular things. So here are my 9 principles, sorry, and I'm going to detail them in the next 9 slides, and then that's only half the talk. So, but you get an overview here of what I'm going to go through. So the first principle is that there should be a written policy. Now, this policy could be for the AI company itself, but it could also be for bodies like the British Computer Society have a policy regarding AI. If there is one, would somebody please put it in the chat? If not, maybe we start thinking about it. Policy is guidance by top management for the group at a very high level. It's sort of a high level principle is one way of thinking about it, but it's higher level than the 9 principles I'm showing here. And I have drafted a policy. Here, we'll get back to it in detail later, but here it is on the right-hand side, very roughly the policy elements if you want to scan through them. But the basic idea is there should be a clear policy that has been debated and people buy into, and people remind the AI companies, you're not following this policy that you have agreed, to, let's say, buy into the British Computer Society policy or the British government policy or whatever. Okay. Point 2, I'd like to introduce my friends, the stakeholders. Now, there's a book I've written called Stakeholder Engineering. There's a free copy of it. Ride can put the link to stakeholder engineering in chat. By the way, at the end of all of these slides is a set of references. So if I reference any book and say it's free, it's also at the end of the slides. In this case, it'd be called stakeholder engineering. And I go very deeply into stakeholders. Here's the beginning of depth. Here's a definition. What do I mean by stakeholder? Many people, almost every individual seems to have their own personal opinion. Some limit themselves to customers and users. That's our IT tradition. But as I shall show you, stakeholders are very much broader than that. And I believe it is mandatory that we go far beyond conventional thinking about users of AI and AI companies and look at all the stakeholders. Here's a simple stakeholder list for the National Health Service. We'll get back to that in more detail later. But the definition of a stakeholder, the short one, is any source of requirements. So if we have requirements for safety of teenagers, where does that come from? Maybe from the teenagers, but for sure from the parents, and for sure from the lawmakers. Those are the stakeholders there. And the point is, if you don't listen to the stakeholders, they will, if they're not satisfied, make life difficult for you. Right now, they're talking about making it really easy to, the US Senate this week talking about making it really easy for people to sue the AI companies for such large sums of money that they notice it. I'm fanatic on definitions. So here's a simple definition of stakeholder. There's a slightly longer one. And then I take almost every word, like the word anything, and define it. So you'll find that it's extremely thoroughly defined and very difficult to misunderstand, but not impossible. So in other words, don't assume that I mean with stakeholder what you mean. Here, there was a picture of a, let's see, sorry, okay, there we go. There's somebody holding a stake, but it's not that kind of stakeholder we're thinking of. Anyway, the principle is that you need to explicitly, in writing, formally, in publicly available plans, identify all the critical stakeholders, the ones you need to consider for ethical, policy, and legal reasons. And then you need to analyze what their values are. So here, the yellow column are some values of stakeholders, just a simple name. And then you need to deal with these values. And that means, from the IT professional point of view, designing these values into the system. We'll get back to that idea of designing the values into the system. In addition to the stakeholders we decide to work with, which may be 10 or 20 or 30, depending on how far you want to go, there will actually be a group of stakeholders that we have identified as existing, but we fear that there are too many stakeholders and too many values to design, and we're a bit overwhelmed, and we just can't do it right now before we launch our product. So we'll do, say, 10 stakeholders and their values that are really critical, otherwise we'll totally fail immediately. But we'll have a group that exists, they have their values, they have their concerns, but we've made a management decision to not deal with them initially. Maybe next year, maybe later, maybe when pressure sets in. And my principle says that those stakeholders that are initially excluded will be documented with reasons why they're given second priority and who made that decision, so we can blame somebody and they'll feel responsible. And we'll be conscious of the fact that there are certain values we're not going to build in initially, and certain stakeholders that are not going to be pleased with our tool. I think that's a very interesting idea, rather than just excluding stakeholders and they're invisible and nobody even knows we excluded them or why or who. Principle number 4. By definition, any interesting stakeholder has certain values, at least one. Many stakeholders may have the same overlapping value, like safety, but they may have different degrees of it needed at different times. And the whole point of stakeholders is that you can derive values. And by the way, a synonym for values is qualities. But the point is the stakeholders value those qualities, and therefore we have to consider delivering them. So here's a simple example of some values for the case study here, the NHS medical system. Quality of patient care, patient safety, staff well-being, etc. And using my planning language in the competitive engineering book, I have a way of making these ideas clearer than a simple quality of patient care. There are 3 ambiguous words there right away. So we start with an overview ambition level: achieve consistently excellent care. Still a lot of high-level political ambiguous statements. But then we dive in, and there's a recognition I have that absolutely all qualities can be quantified. That means you can define a scale of measure. In fact, you'll find you can define usually many different scales of measure, but you have to pick one or maybe pick a set of them. And this gives a much sharper definition, patient safety and satisfaction percent in this case. And then in addition, we define a meter, which is our test process, our measurement process, so we can measure if we are improving or not this particular quality as we build the AI company. And then to make things clearer, we try to analyze or establish the level we're at the moment, the status, and by systems analysis. And then we can identify two future levels we'd like to get to, the tolerable level in 3 years, for example, and the level we wish to achieve to get full success in, for example, 6 years. So this is, in short, when I say to clarify a value, I mean at least this level of specification, not just a political statement that a prime minister or president might say, that don't worry, we're going to take care of things in Gaza and Ukraine or something like that. Okay, so the principle is that the stakeholder values to be considered will be explicitly planned, quantified, always, no exceptions. If you don't know how to quantify it, I promise you your AI system does know how to quantify it. So just ask. Make no excuses for your ignorance about how to quantify quality. Okay? And the tolerable levels, the minimums, and the wish for success levels will be documented. Principle number 5, the same principle as before with the excluded stakeholders, except in this case, if we've excluded some values, in other words, we're not going to build them into our AI system this year for whatever reason, like they're too costly, we don't have time, they're not so critical. We're going to document the values that we are aware of. If necessary, AI will make you aware of any number of additional values if you just ask. And we're going to say, okay, we have consciously excluded them, and here is the reasoning, like it's too costly or something like that, or it's not legally required in Britain. And who is responsible for saying we're not going to do that? Okay. So I like this idea of being very clear about what one has excluded in planning. It's a generally interesting idea. I've begun to practice it the last few years myself. The sixth principle is about constraints. Now, the tolerable level that I just talked about is, in fact, a scalar constraint for values and qualities. So we've handled that. But there are other constraints, like must be legal in United Kingdom. They are binary. You don't need to measure them. It's either, in simple terms, legal or not legal. And there are quite a few of those. I've written a whole book on it called Guides. We can put that in the chat if or you can look for it in the references. But that's a whole book on constraints where I go very deeply. Here's how deeply I go. Here's a list of the attributes, the quality attributes of a constraint. And if that isn't going deep into constraints, I don't know what is. But that's way beyond the scope of this talk, actually. But I thought I'd display it to you and hope to get some people interested in really going deeply into the ideas of constraints. But the sixth principle is that any constraints that we have decided must apply and shall apply, they are made explicit. Of course, if there are some constraints that some would argue should apply, but somebody's decided they won't apply, then maybe we should be explicit about the ones we are ignoring, at least for the time, and why we're ignoring them, as with the stakeholder and value ideas that we've ignored. Principle number 7, design. In the hearings in the Senate, the slide 2, it was very explicitly said that the safety of the young people had not been designed into the products. Okay? So this is not about programming or testing. This is about design. This is about architecture. I've got several free books for you with the word design in it, like the Value Design book and others. And I found that we're sometimes very weak in teaching and understanding design. Some trades, like building architecture or engineering, are very good at it, but IT has been very poor at even teaching and doing design towards quality or design for cost. Unfortunately, but it's very, very clear that these critical values for AI systems need a designer, an architect, not a tester, not a coder. Okay. Uh, and then here, by the way, are some most effective designs, and these designs impact patient safety, and then these designs impact quality of patient care. And now these are just high-level tags or names of designs. We will, of course, specify them far better sooner or later. But here you have a set of designs suggested by AI, by the way, for delivering some interesting levels of these various qualities. Uh, anyway, design specifications, here's a simple level of design specifications, will be explicitly justified. That means, why are they there? How much do they cost? How effective are they in delivering safety for teenagers? You know, and we'll make sure that they don't violate any of the constraints, is one of the tests. Okay. Now, a second part of Principle 7 is this one, that we will use impact estimation tables, which I have invented, as a device for analyzing. So here's a very simple idea. Along the top level here are the tags or names of some designs, like patient safety um, design. And the impact, we're asking, what is its impact on the early warning system patient safety? And somebody has estimated, using good, reasonable estimation techniques with round numbers, that it gives us 40% of our goal. Somebody's got their microphone on, unintentionally, I'm sure. Okay. And there's another design called Qual-C, and it gives nothing to early warning system. So now, obviously, if you have 10 designs and 10 values, you have 100 estimations of the degree of goodness for satisfying the quantified requirements towards a tolerable or goal wish level. Okay, so but the principle says that we're not just going to throw in designs and hope they're well implemented and hope they're well measured. We're actually going to estimate before we prioritize and decide to do a design. We're going to do a theoretical analysis based on the history. And by the way, you can ask AI to help you find the histories of these methods and make the estimate with regard to a clearly stated value, which is what is actually done here. So if you can't figure out how to do this, simply prompt the AI tool to do it. Got it? So principle 7 saying, let's thoroughly analyze our designs before we start spending our billions of dollars, which the AI companies get, making a bad system, what they do. Principle 8 says that all of this planning that I'm suggesting we should do to do AI ethics properly should be reviewed by strong review processes. I have one for you. It's in the free competitive engineering book. It's called Specification Quality Control. It's a review method. Here, in fact, are some of the details of the method. We're not going to go into it, but basically it means that we are going to review the plans, the values, the stakeholders, the designs, the impact estimation tables, with regard to some standards, some rules, like it should be clear, it should be unambiguous, it should be consistent, and that kind of thing. And if we find defects, i.e., it is ambiguous, it is unclear, it's badly estimated, then those defects will be rectified before we approve and exit the plans into, action. Okay, so that's principle number 8. And principle number 9 says that we should recognize that the AI tools we use, there could be a set of them, need to be recognized as a stakeholder in its own right. In other words, the AI tool has some values. Okay. And what are those values? And do we respect them, or do we ignore them and then misuse the tool? Okay. Okay. So that is using 25 minutes of my time. So that's the summary of the systems engineering principles for ethical AI. Anybody who wants to take it seriously and be seen, and boards of directors do want to be seen, to try to be ethical in AI. So this gives them an agenda of things to do to be, say, we are taking this incredibly seriously and rigorously, and we may not be perfect, but we sure as heck are trying. Please don't sue us for $100 million tomorrow. Here is the policy that I gave you a quick view of, and really just some draft ideas. Everybody has to make their own policy, but I'm trying to flesh it out and give some ideas of what the policy is. For example, when choosing our AI system, we will prefer AI systems that are clearly ethical. And what that means is, in the previous part of the lecture, they have chosen some values like extreme safety for teenagers, and they've designed it in, and they are extremely good at it. And so we've chosen those systems because they are measurably more ethical than alternative systems. And of course, this will motivate the AI systems builders to build ethical, to get chosen, so they'll make some money. This is probably what they would like to do. The ethical AI parameters will be well defined, and that was what I largely talked about in the principles. And the ethical AI parameters that we're going to use to judge stuff will include this list of things like human rights and sustainability and other good things. So that's, again, trying to introduce something quite simple called clear thinking. You will find a free book called Clear Communication in the back if you want a more general view of clear thinking, but it includes ideas like structuring the values into all those parameters like scale and meter and tolerable, that's clear thinking, and quantification is clear thinking, and reviewing things against standards so they're not ambiguous and woolly, that is also clear thinking. So this brings me, in a way, to the second half of my lecture, and it's a case study. You've seen parts of the case study. I could do a case study on anything, but as this is a British Computer Society conference, I chose an organization that I've actually done some work with and even used. I used to live in Britain. Long after I moved to Norway, I also had a flat and family in Britain. So anyway, the National Health Service for the UK. Okay. Here, by the way, is the stakeholder engineering front page. So now to do the case study, I'm using prompts to Perplexity, my favorite AI tool for the moment. I don't know how ethical it is, but I hope it's ethical. And the prompts are either implicit or some of the prompts may be hidden in the slide um, presentation notes. But I'm basically using AI to generate this example. St. Thomas's Hospital. So here's the first one. I asked it to give me some primary stakeholders for National Health Service medical AI ethics. That's really the prompt. So here you can see the stakeholders which it has chosen. This is just a short tag. Now, I also said, please tell me what the main three values are for each stakeholder. So we're beginning, that's the whole point of the stakeholders, is to find their values, not to find the stakeholders. But if you don't find the stakeholders, you cannot, by definition, know what the values of an unknown stakeholder is. Okay? So this is the beginning of what are the things we have to ask the AI companies to build into their systems, in this case, AI for the National Health Service. How do these three values relate to AI? So I asked my AI system, tell me how these values relate to AI. And I get a pretty good answer, better than most people I know. And if you'd like to get more detail, I ask for a URL. Sometimes the URLs are totally empty hallucinations. As late as last night, I took a whole column of these and got them to do less hallucinatory things. But in this case, here that link goes to artificial intelligence in emergency medicine, which looks like a very valid, interesting thing for us to read. Okay, so going back to, there we go. Okay, so those who want, again, you can get help to go deeper into these things by asking for valid URLs and studying them. I think so it's a very interesting way of, getting to go, using AI to go far deeper and more completely than most human beings are capable of, including myself, okay? And if you don't like this, you can use the draft, of course, to modify it with human knowledge, which may exceed um, uh, what AI knows about NHS. But the NHS is thoroughly studied for some reason, and the trained knowledge for the AI tool certainly exceeds anything any of us have ever read. So I would trust AI to give us a very good start in understanding who are our stakeholders. So now that was 10 critical stakeholders, each with three critical values. And here we are again, just sort of all the critical stakeholders, and then for each one of them, their value. Okay, now we need to clarify the values according to our principles. So uh, and the point of clarification is it's going to help us prioritize which values we should at least do first, do initially. And then as we've achieved the most critical values at the minimum levels, the tolerable levels, we can use our limited resources of people, money, time to work on and design and deliver even more values. Okay, so in other words, we will gradually prioritize more stakeholders, more values, but we will try to understand which ones we should prioritize first. Here's a little slide with the primary stakeholders, but here is actually this what I call the secondary stakeholders. They are what we call I ask for indirect critical stakeholders. They're listed here. And in a sense, it's these stakeholders first and their values, and then secondarily, maybe a year or two later for National Health Service with their timescales or later, we're going to work on these stakeholders and their values. But at least we have an overview of what we could do, should do, but cannot do in the short term because the budget isn't big enough or the capacity isn't big enough. Okay, so here we're going to prioritize the primary stakeholders, and we know that sooner or later, given the budget and ability, we're going to deal with the rest of it. So please be patient. Here is in the case study how we're going to do the requirements. Here's a value requirements book, which is free if you want to go way beyond your user stories and other oversimplified, dangerous requirements ideas. And here are the parameters, some of which I've shown you already, that I'm going to use to understand each requirement. Okay. And then here is what I've asked the Perplexity to generate for me. So here are the tags of the requirements. Here's the full name, like quality of patient care. Here's the ambition level, achieve consistently excellent care. Sounds nice. This is what we call management BS, but it's usually what the big boss said, so we quote it. But getting serious, we say, what's the scale of measure? And hopefully choose one that is relevant and directs us to do good things. We need to get some idea of how we will measure this as we incrementally, using good agile methods like Evo, deliver more and more quality, moving from 85% to within 3 years, 92%, and hopefully within 6 years to 98%. At least our trajectory of getting better in each of these values is clear. Could be wrong, but it's clear. Here's a little reminder who stakeholders have this value. And here is even a rough idea of a design to get us to this value. And here's even a prioritization of which of these qualities would make the most critical stakeholders most happy. And this priority is the sequence we will start working on each one of these. Like maybe this in month 1, we'll look at this idea of incremental delivery of stakeholder values in a moment. But so the big idea here then is that stakeholder values can, I just showed you that, and must be, we have to demand it of ourselves and of the AI companies, articulated clearly, quantitatively, with a rich context in order to be a sound basis for understanding them, what are we dealing with, and for prioritizing them. Which ones are we going to do first? I went one step further and I said, hey, let's take these values and why don't we talk even more about AI? You know, what is the relationship of patient safety to AI? And for each one of these qualities, AI gives us some insight. By the way, if you wonder how in the heck did it conclude that, you can ask for the URLs to detailed studies and papers, which it undoubtedly used. It didn't just hallucinate or generate this, I promise you. Well, it might try it sometimes, but if you ask for the URLs, you'll see whether it's hallucinating or not. I also ask it for ethical problems for each one of these. And I also asked it for some mitigating tactics for these problems for each one of the values. And I also asked, who are the responsible specialists for the AI problems for each one of the values? Isn't it interesting how you can get some really good advice on how to deal with AI and ethics from AI? So AI can be used to systematically connect the values to interesting problems within AI ethics. And we can go much deeper than any of these. So this is just an overview of the fact we can ask such questions, get such answers, and we can get the references to the many detailed papers about both the National Health Service and probably other national health services in the world, of which there are about 190. Here is the top 10 with this kind of stuff I showed you before. Here are some reference to the details, like the King's Fund NHS AI system, and basically a larger version of what I just showed you. Okay, just an overview of the 10 critical NHS hospital values most affected by AI. You don't have to agree with AI. You can take over and tell it which ones you want to do and let it maybe supplement you with things you have forgotten. AI then can help in the design process. You simply say, given these values, please suggest some designs. So here are the suggested designs by name for each one of the values. And of course, this is just the top level to show that it can suggest some designs, but it can go into excruciating detail, as we shall see, about what those designs are. Here, I've asked it to do an impact estimation table for me. So here are the various designs it has suggested. Here are the scores for how much impact this design has on this value, the patient safety system. And that's nice, but not enough. Okay. And basically, we need enough impact from the designs to reach 100% of the future goals that we've set. And we can see at an early stage, have we done enough design to have a fair shot at reaching our target? If not, keep on designing. If yes, start rolling and start actually delivering, and I mean next week, next month, and continuously start delivering these things and building the system. Okay, that's just a more focused view where the patient safety is estimated using evidence and facts, which it can account for, or you can account for manually. You know, how did we arrive at 40% of the goal? And then another 30% on this goal. That's nice multiple value effects from one design. There's another multiple value down there. Okay. Thought it was interesting to ask, what are the top 3 AI ethical problems in NHS hospitals? So here they are. Here's some more detail: patient safety, quality care, access and waiting time. Surprise no one. Here's the value definition, or roughly, and of course we can get that quantified as we please. And then the problem with patient safety is this one, if you didn't know. And the design to deal with the problem is this one, suggested at least. Who are the experts that need to even pass judgment on this and then help us design it in more detail and do it? These experts. I asked it on a scale of 1 to 10 to say, what is the impact of these designs on this problem? Gave a very high score, 8. And what is the estimated effort? Very costly. You know, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is highest effort, 7. So this gives us some rough, again, you can ask for some rough idea of the value for money, if you like, of each of these things. Okay, so here's summary of what we were just looking at. You can ask AI to help you focus on the problems. Okay, same thing. Okay, so we've got some big design ideas which are going to cost a lot. That could mean it will take 1 year of effort to implement one of those values up to the top levels. So I asked my AI system to help me with something else. I said, could you please decompose the, for example, the first one, AI safety, into monthly endeavors, month 1, month 2, month 3, such that I will get some increment of value other than 0, even if it's only 5%. The 5% real measurable result for the whole National Health Service in 1 month is a lot better than the traditional projects that take 8 years and deliver nothing, fail, and have to be restarted, as we have experienced in several national health services like the Norwegian one. Of course, no such problems at NHS. Okay, so now this is my EVO method, my agile method. It says we will immediately hit the ground running the first month of a very large several-year project, and we will take the most high priority, high value, low cost strategies, and we will decompose them so we can do some of them with these specialists, 6 people, and get some value, some feedback, some learning, good or bad. Like if we were expecting 5% and got -5%, it went worse. Wow, time to learn that we don't, the AI system suggested a very bad design, or we implemented AI's very good suggestion very badly. And why not learn that the first month? That's what this is my EVO cycle. You know, we deliver this thing here, and then we measure, did we get 5% or 3% or -5%? And then we learn, wow, we really did get 5%. Wow, that AI system can really suggest stuff that works. Let's continue the cycle of which stakeholders are we going to deal with, which values from the stakeholders, which strategies, solutions, or designs, and then decompose. That's where we are now. We're decomposing a big strategy into smaller strategies, developing, in other words, coding and testing if we're doing an IT system of any kind, and then delivering. Okay, this is agile as it should have been, but never was with the Agile Manifesto or Scrum or anything like it. Of course, I'm a very angry old man about them doing Agile so badly when I did try to advise them of doing something better. But they were more concerned with earning money from Agile certificates, and they earned a lot. They sold fake certificates, meaning nothing, to over 1 million people, some of whom are probably listening in. Okay, so we need to shift to the reason Agile is now considered a big failure is very simple. We didn't focus on delivering real, measurable, valued values to valued critical stakeholders early and in a continuous stream of getting better and better. I've actually done some investigations asking AI to find me case studies of delivering values with conventional Agile like Scrum. And long story short, you can't find any such studies. It's all bullshit words. I'll give you the study if you're in doubt about that. It's in one of my recent talks. I think I held it for the BCS quality group earlier this year. Okay, by the way, here's this first 5% step. Okay, now to do a month's of work, you're going to have to do a number of things. So I ask the AI say, please help me plan the tasks that I need to do for the first step here, the first month. And it does it. Here's a step of 4 work days out of the month, which will cost 2,500 quid. Here are some of the risks of that step. Here's some references to detailed examples of people doing such steps. And here's a description of what we're going to do. Now, this is not it's not delivering results. This is a task that consumes money, uses people, and it gets stuff done. And we have to, in a sense, do all of these steps in order to deliver this 5%. But we can still use AI to give a superior plan to what most people would come up with of how to do this value delivery step, I call it. And I think that's very interesting. We're using AI to come up with this step in the design for a month of getting to 5%. But we're also using AI for our project planning tasks. And that's what this is. And I think that's very interesting how well it does it. And you can ask yourself, if I asked my smartest human on my team to make such plans as these, how well would they do? You could do a parallel competition, your best people against AI. I think I can promise you AI will beat the people hands down. But the people will be able to see weaknesses in the AI thinking because it's not tuned to, St. John's Hospital. And they'll be able to, humans will modify the AI plans to local conditions that AI has just simply not been trained on. We can see here what it's been trained on and its basis. And we say, well, that's irrelevant. That's the Norwegian health system, damn it. We are British. Okay, so we use AI, but with caution, with critical thinking, and with modification. And you can just tell it, we've changed your plans. Now, revise the plan, but we're changing these parts. No problem. Another minute. Same thing. So same thing, more detail about the tasks within the Evo step. Okay, so we're reaching the end of the talk, and that's good because I've only got 8 minutes left, and we might be able to squeeze in a few questions. By the way, I invite you to send me questions through my email, and I'll answer them during the day, if you do, or during the night, if that's when I get them. And I'll be here all day to join in the discussions. So here's generated by AI, a one-page version of the different disciplines of systems engineering, generating stakeholders in this is my Evo cycle, agile as it should have been and can be, and has been for some of my clients. Okay, here are the values, simplified short example. Here are the solutions or designs to design in the values. Here are the delivery steps, the decomposition of big solutions, okay? And here is the impact estimation table that looks at how powerful the solutions are for delivering the values. So everything in one page. So that is my summary of something we could call AI ethics engineering. Nice title, because I am trying to sell you the idea that if ethics is critical, and it is critical to the life of some teenagers, and some of you, like me, we are parents and grandparents, and we deeply care that the AI systems do not mislead our kin and other innocent teenagers to self-harm and worse. So that's it. Here's just the reminder that there are lots of free references for those who wish to become expert, become consultants selling their knowledge at extremely high fees when they cannot sell their agile knowledge because nobody thinks it's worth anything anymore. more.